Behold, white gold. We're talking about this today, the great tasting Oroblanco Grapefruit. From about January until about the end of April into May.
Fruit on the tree. Look at that. We're deep in the May.
See that?
Orchard planted in the ground. There's another one right here.
Experience.
Oroblanco. See the tag right here.
This big guy right here, this is a favorite of mine. This is the Oroblanco Grapefruit. It is a cross between a Duncan white grapefruit and a pomelo. And interestingly enough, this grapefruit was developed not too far from me at the University of California in Riverside.
All right, we are going to spotlight the Oroblanco grapefruit today, but let me also get you updated on the citrus and oriented on the layout for Citrus Row. So left to right, on the far left, there's a big peach tree on the extreme left, excuse me, not peach, nectarine. And then right next to it on its right is the pink lemonade. And then you move over, pink lemonade, lemon. In between kind of the two taller trees, the pink lemonade and the other citrus on the right. In the middle, there's a couple of small trees. One is a regular Eureka lemonade, and the other is a lime. It's a key lime. I'll show you that closer up in a bit. And then this taller tree right there in the middle, that is the blood orange. Right below it, the small tree is the Oroblanco 2. It's the second Oroblanco in the orchard, planted in the ground. There's another one right there. That's the big one. That's the main one that is producing the fruit. Oroblanco 2. And then behind it, let me see if I can get the proper angle for you. Let's move around this way. Right behind it is the mandarin. That is the gold nugget. And then we move to the right side of the Oroblanco, and we have the tangelo. You can still see tangelos on the tree. And then right below the pomegranates here is the cara cara. There's a cara cara right there. So that is the orientation of how we're laid out on Citrus Row. Helps us get cross-pollination with all the citrus all together and keeps us organized and structured.
From a nutritional perspective, as you would expect, this Oroblanco has tons of vitamin C, but it also has fiber and it also has a good amount of potassium for other health benefits.
All right, let's walk over from this angle. You can see the pink lemon and then the other lemon and lime. That's a lemon on the left, a key lime on the right. We've got the Oroblanco, we've got the blood orange, and we come over to the tree that has been really producing, which is the Oroblanco grapefruit that we're spotlighting today. First thing I want to let you know is we still have fruit on the tree. Look at that. We're deep into May, and we still have 3 or 4, oh, I see a fourth, grapefruit still on the tree. But look at this. The flowers are already flowered and they've already set fruit. And we've got a bunch of baby grapefruits that are positioning themselves for next year, which is really cool. Look at that, another one right there. So that is kind of the epitome of the citrus, where they're always working. They're going from producing flowers to having fruit, holding on fruit, and then they'll actually produce flowers and start to develop fruit for next year, all at the same time. So they never really have an off season, the citrus.
So one of the things I get feedback on is that I don't do enough tasting of the fruit live on camera. So we got the grapefruit right here. We're going to cut it up and we're going to see what it tastes like.
All right, let me just quickly point something out on some of the other fruit. Here's the blood orange. We still have a lot of blood oranges here on the tree. They're starting to look like they're starting to dry up a little bit, some of them. Some of them still look nice and plump. So we'll test these, but they're coming to the end of their cycle. They've already hit their peak, but there's still a few fruit on here. The only thing I want to call out about the blood orange is that I did not see a lot of flowers. I don't see I don't see any baby blood oranges. So we're probably going to go through a season after having 2 great years producing fruit on the blood orange. It looks like it's going to be a little bit of alternate bearing for next year, and that we're going to have a season where we don't have blood oranges. But that is why we have a bunch of other citrus to make up in case one of the trees don't produce.
All right, let's talk about the seasons for the moment on this Oroblanco grapefruit. It's ripe usually from about January until about the end of April into May. But one of the things I've noticed about it is that the longer it hangs on the tree, the sweeter the fruit tastes.
All right, one more thing I want to mention about the grapefruit, the Oro Blanco, this tree in particular, is it's been in the ground about 4 years. It was one of the first trees that I've put into the ground. About 5 citrus and a couple of other trees were my first 8 or so trees. And so it's been here since we've started the orchard. And what is good about it is that they're finally starting to kick into gear. They're starting to get bulletproof and being very consistent and producing pretty much more each year. So my first year having this in the ground, I bought it with fruit on it, had probably about 15 pieces of fruit. The next year we went up to about 20. I think we're somewhere around 25 to 30 this year of grapefruits, which is the perfect amount for me. Look at this. Hold on one second. I just love seeing that. Once the grapefruit gets about quarter size, it's usually pretty good. They usually, like, you'll get a lot of drops. Like, look at this. Here's a drop that's on the ground. But once it usually gets to be about that size, about quarter size, usually the fruit is going to hold until next year. So that's a very good sign. And I'm anticipating that next year we'll have about maybe 40 or so. And that's going to be plenty to get me through the season. I'll eat maybe a grapefruit a week or so, over 3 months roughly, and give a few away. So we're doing really good with having this tree producing at the levels that it's producing.
All right, so if you're enjoying this content, hit the like button, throw a comment in the comment section, hit your bell notifications, and share out the video with family and friends. And I just want to take a moment to let you know that I appreciate you and thank you very much for supporting this channel. Oh, and one other thing, stick around to the end, and I'm going to give you some highlights and some stuff that's happening right now in the orchard.
Regarding the other citrus, they are looking pretty decent. This is my latest season citrus, which is the Gold Nugget Mandarin. They have a few still here on the tree. Not many, but still a few. And I don't see them right now at the moment because they're very green, but I did notice that it was producing fruit. It flowered a lot. Yeah, I see a bunch at the top. Let me just zoom in real quick. Not sure if you picked up on any of that, but there's definitely fruit producing on this tree for next year. And also, like the grapefruit, the Tangelo is producing a lot of new fruit as well. Look at that. And we still have, these are definitely getting dried up. Look at that, that's all shriveled up. That's past its expiration date. Throw that down, let it mulch back into the soil. But the Tangelo is producing a lot of fruit for next year. So again, we're in good shape overall citrus-wise.
Now, one of the things that you'll find on your fruit trees in your fruit is that from year to year, it will taste different. There's all sorts of factors that affect it. Where's the fruit position on the tree? Is it on a part of the tree where it's getting more sunlight than the other part? What were the summers and the winter like? So for a grapefruit, it takes a certain amount of cold as well for it to get all of its sweetness within the fruit. So those kind of things are important. The winter, how cold does it get? How much sun does it get? Where is the position on the tree? How was it fed this year? How much water did it get? All of those things can alter the taste of the fruit from time to time and from fruit to fruit.
One of my dilemmas is um, I liked the Oro grapefruit so much that I wanted to make sure I had redundancy. So I have actually 3 on the property. I have 2 in the ground, this little guy right here, the big one on the right, and then 1 in a pot. And now that this big one is starting to produce enough for me, I am questioning whether or not to keep this little guy. And it's, we'll walk up to it in a second, but I don't need 100, 200 grapefruits in a year. So now it has me thinking about replacing it. And I would like to get your guys' opinion. I'm looking for a late season, maybe a mandarin or something like that, a late season citrus to replace the Oroblanco, the second Oroblanco. So if you have any ideas, throw some ideas in the comment section. But that's what I'm thinking about replacing the smaller one. We're getting plenty of production on the large Oroblanco grapefruit. All right, and here's a close-up on the baby one, the smaller grapefruit. And I'm seeing 3, 4, 5. I'm not seeing a lot of fruit on this. And so now I've got a question also, is the juice worth the squeeze? So I think I'm gonna go shopping and see if I can find a late season citrus, something that I don't have, something that I would enjoy eating, and get me some more late season that gets me to May, June in my citrus rotation.
One more thing to keep in mind is that the Oro Blanco is sometimes confused with the mellow gold. Even when you go to a farmer's market, if you ask for an Oro Blanco, sometimes they'll slip right in the mellow gold and they look very similar on the outside. But in my opinion, the Oro Blanco has a much sweeter taste than the mellow gold, which tends to be more watery. Mellow gold is a very refreshing fruit. I don't want to disparage it at all, but for my taste, the Oro Blanco is the best tasting of the white grapefruits.
Let me just point something out real quick. Here's my grapefruit, Oroblanco. You see the tag right here. This one's in a pot. It's the same size or smaller as the small one in the ground, but yet it's producing a lot more fruit. So I want to share this with you to give you guys some encouragement that if you don't have the ability to put a tree in the ground, you can actually grow trees in pots. And early in their life cycle, in their life, their first few years, a lot of times they'll actually produce a lot better being in a pot than they will being in the ground. So keep that in mind, that is an option for you if you're limited on space and where you can plant. You can actually keep citrus and other fruit trees in pots, move them around, protect them from the elements, and they will do very well. As you see, this little one is producing a lot more fruit than my small one in the ground.
See that? Look at that. That's goodness. Don't want to waste too much of the juice. So I like to cut it in half. And then when I cut it in half, I cut it in thirds. So basically 6 parts for the grapefruit. And not a lot of seeds. Sometimes they do have a few seeds in them, but this one doesn't seem to have a lot of seeds in it. Let's give it a taste. Very refreshing. I think one of the things that you notice when you eat a Oro Blanco is that the sweetness is not overpowering. Don't expect this to taste like an orange or a tangelo or a mandarin, but also don't expect it to be on the other side of the scale either. Don't expect it to taste like a lemon, and don't expect for it to taste like a ruby red grapefruit that you buy in the store that is very tart, that makes you pucker up, that you have to put. For me, I'd have to put sugar on it or some honey to kind of mellow out the tartness. But the balance of the sweetness, which is mild, and the tartness, which is extremely mild, creates a nice, smooth tasting experience. It's pretty good.
The blossoms, the flowers on the pomegranates are incredible right now. Several of the trees, there's 4 in the orchard, are just loaded with flowers. Then walking over here, we have my wonderful, and then we have my favorite, which is the Parfianca. It's been light in recent years, but it is threatening to put on lots of fruit. I am seeing more flowers than I've ever seen on this pomegranate tree. And then take a look at the avocados, notoriously slow in growing and putting on fruit. 4 minimum, 5 to 7 is the average. And this tree has put on fruit maybe the last year, but not in any significant amounts. But this year, it looks like we had a lot of flowers and we have a lot of fruit that we'll potentially get this year. The avocados are looking great. In my last video, I shared the Maha Chinook that had baby mangoes on it. This is the orange sherbet. Not quite as much production, but we have more baby mangoes coming on board on this tree as well. A rack of bananas on the way. This is incredible. This is one of the things you get excited about when you have a tree in the ground for 4 years and it does nothing. And then it finally, look at that, the first cherry in my orchard, the first homegrown cherry in my backyard. That is exciting. I'm ecstatic. Incredible. Cherries are harder to grow here in my area because it doesn't get as cold. We're cold enough in the winter. But lo and behold, we got cherry. I can't say cherries, we got at least 1 cherry coming. And we'll keep a lookout to see if the rest of these flowers take fruit. The star of the orchard right now as we migrate from citrus into other fruits are the loquats. Here's my biggest loquat tree out of 2, the champagne. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful ripe loquats. My sister loves loquats. She's going to be so happy to get a season's worth of loquats on her doorstep.